Have you ever wondered how an idea turns into that app you use every single day? Well, that journey, it's a real quest, and right at the heart of it is the product manager. Today, we're going to break down exactly how they work their magic, turning a simple concept into a product you just can't live without.
You've probably heard this phrase before, right? The mini CEO. It sounds great, it's catchy, and it paints this picture of a leader who has complete control over a product, from the big picture vision all the way down to the tiniest detail.
But let's get real for a second and unpack that. While mini CEOs sound super impressive, the reality is it's a really complex balancing act. What does it actually take to guide a product from just a spark of an idea all the way to a successful launch and, everything that comes after?
It really all comes down to this one intersection. A product manager's main job is to make sure their team ships a great product, period. They're kind of the hub of a wheel, connecting technology, business, and design. They have to translate what customers actually need into something that's 1, technically possible, 2, financially smart, and 3, actually a pleasure to use.
So where does this whole quest even begin? Well, like any great adventure, it starts with a map. Before a single line of code is written, the product manager has to chart the course. They have to figure out not just where the product is going, but more importantly, why.
This journey from an idea to a full-blown release can pretty much be broken down into 4 key stages. And as a product moves through this life cycle, the PM's job completely transforms. They need a totally different set of skills and focus for each and every step.
The very first stage is all about answering one big question. What should we build? And to answer that, the PM has to become an expert on, well, everything. The customer, the market, the company's goals. Success here is all about asking the right questions from the get-go.
Okay, with so many things to consider, how do you possibly organize all your thoughts? Well, PMs rely on these things called strategic frameworks. A real classic one is the SWOT analysis. It helps them map out all the internal good and bad, the strengths and weaknesses, against all the external good and bad, the opportunities and threats. It's just a structured way to see the whole board.
So let's pretend you're a PM working on a new fit tracker app. You'd map this all out. You'd look at your internal strengths, like, hey, we've got a brilliant AI engine, versus your weaknesses, like, nobody knows who we are. Then you size up the outside world. Opportunities, like the fitness market is booming, against the threats, like, wow, there is some fierce competition out there.
And this deep dive goes even further. A framework like the 5 C's forces the PM to think about everything from the company's own internal quirks to what the competitors are doing to the broader economic climate. It makes sure that absolutely no stone is left unturned.
Now, after all that strategic planning, you don't just jump into building the final perfect product. Think of it this way. You're not trying to build a giant cruise ship on day one. No way. You build a raft, a simple raft, just to see if you can even float. This is the whole idea behind something called a minimum viable product, or an MVP. Forget trying to build everything for everyone. Instead, you focus on the absolute bare-bones essentials to solve one core problem. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is maximum learning with minimum risk.
An MVP is really just an experiment. It's designed to answer the single biggest, scariest question you have. Is anyone actually going to use this? It validates your core idea before you sink a ton of time and money into building the whole cruise ship.
And what's so fascinating about this is that you don't always need to write code, seriously. An MVP can be a simple landing page just to see if people will sign up. Or you can do what's called a Wizard of Oz test, where a real human is behind the curtain, manually doing the work to make the product seem automated. It's all about being clever and resourceful so you can learn fast.
Okay, so you've launched your raft, and guess what? People love it. They want to get on board. Now you have a totally new problem. You have a super long list of potential features people are asking for. So what do you build next?
This is a classic PM challenge. You've got endless ideas and very limited resources. So how in the world do you choose? This is where prioritization frameworks become a PM's absolute best friend. They give you a structured way to make those tough calls and get the entire team on the same page.
A really popular method is called Moscow. It's a simple but super powerful way to bucket features into what you absolutely must have, what you should have, what you could have, and, this is crucial, what you explicitly won't have for the next release. This forces a really difficult but really important conversation about what's essential right now.
But what if you need a more objective, more data-driven way to make these decisions? Well, that's where a framework like RICE comes in.
It actually helps you score and quantify the value of each potential feature, so you can compare apples to apples, not just opinions. Okay, this is where it gets really cool. Rice turns what could be a subjective debate into a data-driven comparison. Just look at this fit tracker example. Progress tracking gets a huge score of 36, but the fancy AI workout engine only scores a 20. So why is that? Well, while the AI is super exciting, it's a ton of effort to build. Progress tracking, on the other hand, has a similar reach and impact, but it's way easier to build. It delivers real value to users faster.
The magic is all in this little formula. You multiply reach, how many people will this touch? By impact, how much will this move the needle? By confidence, how sure are we about our numbers? Then you divide all of that by the effort required to build it. It's a simple calculation that forces a really rigorous debate. And in the end, the highest score usually wins.
So, with the priorities all locked in, the team just springs into action. The product moves through development, through testing, and it's all leading up to that one big moment, getting it into the hands of real customers.
And this brings us right back to that four-stage cycle we talked about. The team implements and tests those features they prioritized, they release the product, and then the most critical phase of all begins, gathering all that feedback and data to figure out what to do next.
And this is a super important takeaway. A successful launch is never, ever the end of the story. It's actually the beginning of a continuous loop of learning, iterating, and improving, all based on how real people are using your product. The quest never truly ends.
Ultimately, a product manager's entire quest really just boils down to answering two simple questions. What game are we playing, and how do we know if we're winning? It's this relentless cycle of strategy, execution, and learning. So the next time you open your favorite app, just think about all the choices that were made and the hundreds of choices that weren't made, just to bring that experience to your screen.